Julie.
Hi.
I'm Beatrice, but what I actually wanted to say is my first name is Chippo.
Oh,
So I'm Chippo.
I didn't know that.
That's my first name. So
Right.
everyone that knows me from home, it's Chippo.
Oh,
So
okay.
Beatrice is my Christian name. So it's Chippo
Okay.
Beatrice Adebesin.
Right.
I am Zimbabwean by birth, Nigerian by marriage, and British by association.
Oh, my word.
Yes. So I tend to say I'm probably like the most diverse person that I've ever met.
Wow.
Myself. And I am a wife. Mm-hmm. I am a mother of 2 amazing boys.
Fantastic.
I'm a sister. I'm an amazing friend. I can be anybody you want me to be.
So
I'm that all-round person that fits in anywhere and everywhere.
So your friends,
Yes.
people who know you really well, how would they describe you then?
Some of them would think I'm a bit crazy, spontaneous,
Right.
loud, love selfies, love group pictures. I've got an open door policy, so I'm that person. In one word, they would probably say reliable.
Ah. So what does open door policy mean?
Open door policy is I'm that type of friend that doesn't switch off the phone. So if you ring me at any time, I will pick up. If you need me at any time, I will jump in the car and I will come to you. So I'm that person, not just friends, but even with family. I'm that person I'm that Mrs. Fix-It or go-to person that mothers everybody.
Yeah.
And
You're painting a picture of yourself. I love it. And we know each other a little bit, don't we?
Yeah.
And what couple of things I know about you is that, I agree with the slightly cray-cray thing. I get that. One of the things I love is that you're a bit cheeky, like you're just a little bit cheeky and a bit sort of, I don't know, always like playful. Like you could always be getting up to some mischief.
Would you call it youthful?
I think, definitely. Yeah, if that makes you feel good. Youthful.
Youthful.
And I know there's been a couple of times we've been at the same party and you have always pulled me onto the dance floor and you tried to teach me some moves, but it hasn't always gone down well. So I just, maybe I need some more lessons.
No, I mean, I do. Well, no, not that you need lessons, but I think you can just dance how you want. It's
Do you
like,
reckon?
just
I don't
get
know
up
if my
and
children would agree with that. But
get up and dance. No, I do love to dance. I find it quite liberating. Not that I can dance, but
you've got some
it's
good
just
moves.
something that I do.
Fantastic. Okay, so you've described yourself really well. Yeah. And were you born and raised in the UK?
No, not at all. I was born in Zimbabwe. I came to the UK when I was 20, I think, 20, 21. So I did all my primary education, college, whatever, in Zimbabwe. So I just came here for college and university.
So you came here from Zimbabwe?
Yes.
And I mean, I see you now as quite an educated woman. So what was that process then in terms of, what sort of education have you got and what sort of work do you do?
Okay. Although I said that was my grandfather, my mom and dad are really, really, really big on education.
Yeah.
And they've got this thing from Nelson Mandela that believes, that education is power. Okay. And if you're educated, you can smash doors and you can literally get anywhere. So my parents put education first. So even me coming to England, it was all to do with education. So I did my first degree here and my master's, and I'm also professionally qualified. So I'm a HR professional.
Ooh.
Yes.
Okay.
What else can I say about it? Yeah, I'm a HR professional. I love what I do. I do hard HR, soft HR. I love coaching. I love inspiring people. I think it's amazing to be able to bring out the best in people so they can be able to live their full potential. And
Brilliant.
that's like the best part of aspects of my job that I like.
Fantastic. I love the sound of that. So we said at the beginning, we're going to talk a little bit about mental health. And you've told me you grew up in Africa, so in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
When you were growing up in Zimbabwe, if you were to have heard of a person who had mental ill health, what would that conjure up for you, that thought when you were growing up?
Oh. I don't think it's a thought. It's something that I saw.
Okay.
So
Explain a bit more.
when you say
Yeah.
you'd think about it,
Yes.
it's when people said mental health, or when you saw somebody that had mental health,
Right.
it was someone that was roaming the street. With no clothes. It was someone that was talking to themselves. It was someone that was eating out of bins.
Right,
It was someone that was demon possessed and needed to be taken to church and dipped into the river and get all the demons washed out of them. And so it wasn't something that it looks like in England.
Okay.
It was something totally different. And mental health is something that wasn't spoken about. So it's not something that you say to someone, oh, hi, I've got mental health.
Right.
People will look at you and think, what are you on about? So it's just something that I never thought about it, because it's just something that I saw.
So mental health wasn't something that you had a framework for within your own mind. It was more that you would see someone on the streets that was kind of a bit mad.
Yeah,
would you say?
mad. It literally was to do with madness.
Okay, so mental ill health was associated with madness in your culture growing up.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how I perceived it.
Right.
I don't know if it was my culture, but that was what I perceived.
That was your perception.
And that is my perception, and that is what I saw.
Okay.
Because there wasn't any other explanation. Right. It was just more of, that person is mad.
Wow. Okay.
Take them to church.
And you would have seen that happen, people being taken to church or dipped in the river, as you mentioned it.
Yeah, you saw it on TV. I mean, I probably didn't see it happening.
Okay.
Where I've actually been somewhere and physically seen it happening. Yeah. But it was something that was either on television, or if there were people on the streets, it's something that you would see on the street.
Okay, so that was your frame of reference for thinking about, or no, not thinking about. You've told me it wasn't thinking about, but what you saw, that was your frame of reference around mental health.
Yes.
So what was growing up? What were the messages that perhaps came to you about the role of a woman, or how you were meant to be in society? Like, what messages did you receive? And they might have been, I suppose, explicit or implicit, things that...
Well, growing up, you know how you said I'm quite cheeky and I'm quite sassy and I'm quite chatty. Growing up in Africa, that wasn't something that was... I can't say very attractive. It was something that was very encouraged, that you had to behave a certain way. You had to be really composed. You have to be seen to be together. You have to be strong. You have to fix up, really. It's more about... Fix up?
What does that mean?
More about fixing up. It's my mum always used to say, you don't write your problems on your forehead. Oh. She always used to say that people don't need to know what's going on in your house. People don't need to know your business. You need to put your makeup on. Dress nicely. So that's the whole...
Is a bit
fix
like
up
putting
means
on your face.
Putting on your face.
Right.
And stepping out there because you're strong, you're courageous.
Wow.
And you're bold, and you just basically suck it up.
Wow.
And deal with stuff, because life happens.
So life happens, and the expectation that you were kind of raised with was that you were to be strong.
Yes.
You were to fix it up, and to keep what was on the inside on the inside.
Oh yes, you don't talk about your business to people or to strangers or to. It's not something that we do. It's taboo.
Wow.
You just.
That sounds really strong when you say taboo.
You just don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just. But that's how I was trained.
Okay.
And I think with most, it's a cultural thing. I think that's how we're all trained. You don't go out and talk your business out to anybody. So you just,
Okay, so you're painting a picture really for me as we're having this chat about your perspective on what mental ill health looked like, and also on what your training was. And that's the word you used. You were trained to be a strong woman. Yeah,
I don't know if you're trained, conditioned. It's just to me, it was just part of what we...
Yeah, like the way of life.
The way of life, yes.
And then you came to the UK.
Yes.
And how old were you when you got here, did you say?
20.
Okay, so you came here at 20.
I was old. I was old enough for my...
Yeah.
Yes, that's like over 20 years ago. Wow.
Wow, a long time.
A long time ago. Yeah, a long time ago.
And you've already told me that you got married and you've got 2 kids.
Yes.
And tell me about your kind of experiences living in the UK, what the last sort of 10, 20 years of being here has been like. Has it been an easy road for you, or have there been any challenges that you've experienced?
If I look back, it's been pretty challenging. Reasons being said, I came in as an international student, and I said I was from Zimbabwe, and with everything that happened, I was self-funding as well as a student. So I can't say I wasn't the same as everybody else, but I used to work nights. So I used to work in a call centre, and I used to work at 9 o'clock at night, and I used to finish at 7 o'clock.
Oh my word.
For 7 o'clock in the morning, and I used to get dressed, run and get the coach. I was in class by 7. I didn't miss any lectures.
Wow. But that's not surprising from what you told me. Fix it up,
you had to fix up. You had to fix up. I didn't miss any lectures. It was really, really, really challenging. But I think with my personality as well, I was surrounded by great friends that used to cheer me on in university. When I did my masters, it was the same. It was really, really challenging. But one of the things I'm really proud of is I did get my undergrad, I did get my postgrad, and I'm professionally qualified. But that was through, obviously, immigration challenges and finances and all that. So it was challenging. And I remember when I wanted to do my masters, and I said I was going to do my masters, my cousin turned around and said to me, the only reason you're doing your masters is because you can't find a husband.
Oh.
I know.
Okay. So the expectation was that you would have got married at that point?
At that point, I've done my first degree. I should get a husband. And I was now over 30. So it's that whole stigma of if you're at a certain age, you should be married. And
so a lot of
I had all those expectations of, why are you even going to uni to do your masters? Look for a husband. I had comments from family members where they would say, if you can't find a husband, why don't you just have a child so you don't die alone?
Oh, wow.
So it was all that pressure and all that.
Yeah.
But, I'm taking it back. I know you're saying this is about England or whatever, but I'm taking it back to more of like cultural. So even the fact that I was in England, living in England life, I still had the pressures before I even got married.
Yeah. And I suppose that, just because you'd moved to England, all of the culture that you'd grown up with, all of those narratives around being strong and, as you say, finding a husband and having children, they were all in there.
They were all in there,
You brought them with you.
Yeah.
So did things get more challenging at any point for you?
I got married.
Okay, is that it? You got married and then it became a challenge.
Like, oh great, let's get married, let's do this. I got married, it was amazing. I had an amazing wedding. And then I had my first son. Okay. And when I had my second son, things started to spiral.
Okay.
Or things started to change. When I look back, I must have had postnatal depression, or should I say I probably had postnatal depression. Okay. And that was something that I didn't identify, and it wasn't identified, and I couldn't identify. And I'm not sure if it was because of my thought process, or because I didn't want to talk about it because I felt like a failure. And I remember when my son was born, I can't say I was so depressed. I was so down. I had a situation where on the second day he was born, I walked out of hospital.
Okay.
I handed him to his dad.
Right.
And I said, this is it. I've had your child. Here you go. And I walked out.
Wow.
And I walked out and I went home. But when I went home, I wanted to die. And I didn't want to wake up.
Wow. So it was a really low point for you.
It was. It was really low because obviously my children are my world, and I keep saying I'm a geriatrics mom. So, it's not like I had him when I was young. This is somebody that I had prayed for, and this is somebody that I had waited for so long, and I wanted this child. And why am I now leaving him in hospital and walking off? And I had my second son jumped into the taxi with me, and he kept on saying, "Mama, we need to go back to the hospital. Mama, we need to go back to the hospital. They'll be looking for you." And because I found the strength from somewhere, because he was there. Okay. And I just walked back in the hospital. The nurses asked me, "Where were you?" And I said, I'd just gone home to rest. But that wasn't the case. Okay. And then I had to fix up again.
Oh, so you'd walked out of the hospital. You'd left the baby behind.
Yeah.
And because you just felt you couldn't cope, you couldn't manage.
I felt I wasn't good enough.
Okay.
I felt I wasn't good enough, and I felt that I was an incubator, and I'd carried him, and I'd brought him into the world, and that was it.
Wow. But your perception was that you weren't good enough. It wasn't that there's something wrong here.
No.
It was that you weren't good enough.
It was just I wasn't good enough. I was struggling with everything. I was struggling at home. I was struggling, but I didn't identify it as depression. It was a sign of I was weak. I was ashamed. I don't know. It's just I didn't identify it at that time. So I fixed it. But after he was born, I cried all the time.
Right.
I'd feed him and I'd pass him back to his dad. And I'd feed him and I'd pass back to his dad. And then things got better, but I didn't talk about it.
So all of that emotion that you were feeling was just kind of
I didn't talk about it because
inside.
I felt like I couldn't talk about it because it would be maybe some of the words I'd hear is, "What are you complaining about? Are you not blessed? You have children. Okay. You should be thanking God you have a child. You should be." So I felt like no one would really understand me because there's people there that want children and there's people there that are not married and there's people there that are not. So what am I? Yeah.
So how much do you think the culture that you've described that you were raised in, how much was that at play then at that time where you didn't necessarily have a language of, I think I might have postnatal depression? How do you think that culture was informing what was wrong for you? Like what would that culture be saying to you at that time?
What it would be saying to me is, not you're weak, or you're not. You need to be strong, or you're being melodramatic.
Wow. Okay.
Or you're being, you're not the first woman that's had a child. I'll break it down in my own accent. Are you the first person to have a child?
Okay. Yeah.
Are you the first person to have a C-section? Are you the first person to have? So it was more of everybody else is coping.
Oh.
So why are you not coping?
Oh. So there was a comparison to other people and how you should be
and how
doing
I
it.
should be doing it and how I should. So because I didn't have anybody around me and I probably didn't have my family and I didn't have mental health or depression or whatever was not spoken about. So how can I identify something that I don't know?
Yeah, I get you.
Right.
So,
how can I identify something that I don't know? And how can I, and when you hear postnatal depression or whatever, here, I can't say it was a white man thing, but everyone that spoke about it was white.
Okay. So that,
Without me trying to sound like a racist, I've never heard an African person say they've got postnatal depression.
Okay, and you weren't about to be the first person that you've ever heard of saying it.
No.
And like you say, you didn't actually recognise.
No, I didn't recognise it. So even if someone said to me, "Oh, I've got postnatal depression and whatever," and it's more, and talking about it at that time as well, you're associating it with, if you tell the nurse, if you tell people, they'll take your baby away.
Okay, so fearful.
Because you're not mentally stable.
Yeah.
So you need to. So these are all the voices that you'd hear.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to. It's that whole fixing up. So even if someone does come or the health visitor comes, I still fixed up.
Yeah. And I suppose, hearing that, it would be quite understandable that you would be afraid of being branded that mad woman.
Yeah.
That's, you'd heard of running around the
unstable.
streets. And being unstable and the fear and the stigma that would be associated with that for you. So what happened then? I mean, you obviously, now you realise that you perhaps had postnatal depression, but what was your journey to recognising your own challenges with mental ill health?
So after my son was born, 2 days later I went into hospital with chest pains. I thought I was having a heart attack. They kept me in for 2 days or so doing observations. I had high blood pressure. I had high blood pressure anyway. But because I tried to mask it so much and I tried to fix up, I started off as anxiety.
Uh-huh.
I started now having physical pain in my body.
Right.
Where I was now physically ill. But it was like an 18-year journey or a 2-year journey where I was in hospital 7 times.
Wow.
With it. With this heart condition.
So your only way of interpreting it was that something physical was wrong.
That something was seriously wrong with me. We've got heart condition in my family. So I just assumed that I was going to be like either my grandmother or my uncle or I didn't see it as anything. And then on the 7th time I went back to the hospital because I used to go to A&E.
Okay.
So the reason I'm saying, or I'd call, and because it was something that was urgent or whatever, they'd take me to A&E or they'd come assess me at home. But it was mostly they'll tell me to go to A&E, and I was assessed at A&E, and this doctor took me aside. It was an Asian doctor, and sat me down, and he was very, very thorough, and sat me down and said to me, "We need to have a chat." And I thought, okay. And he says, I've done all your obs. I've done everything, right? You're not having a heart attack. But you need to find the root of why you keep coming here.
Okay.
Because it's going to kill you.
Wow, that sounds like quite a serious talk.
And I thought, and why he said it's going to kill you, because I had blood pressure as well.
Right.
So it just wasn't... the chest of whatever, my blood pressure would go up. And he said, there's a root that's causing this. Right, I need you to, when you leave here, I need you to go to the doctors and I need you to talk it through and find the root of where this pain is coming from.
Wow.
It's deeper.
And so he was very clearly saying this pain that you're experiencing, these emotions, the difficulties aren't a physical problem, but something else that's going on, something more emotional.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what he... So it was kind of like a shock. But the way he said it, I needed to hear it in
direct.
I needed somebody to be quite direct. And I remember going to the doctor and having a discussion with the doctor. And saying, I walked in and I said, I've come in here because the guy I met at the hospital, the doctor that I met at the hospital, said I should come in, so I'm here.
So it was that kind of playful, slightly, you were being your sort of, I don't know.
Sort of, I'm
sassy,
cool, I'm strong,
bee,
And then she sat there and she went, okay, let's have a chat. Do you know that sort of, and obviously because they're professionals in there or whatever, and she says, let's have a chat and let's talk.
Okay. What was that like for you, her sitting back and being, let's talk?
It made me not nervous, but I had like a tremble where I thought, okay, she's getting into my space. It's that bit of not letting anybody in. And
you'd said that was part of the culture. You keep what's inside. You fix it up. And she's essentially saying, I want you to take that off and talk.
Yeah. And then she said, explain to me what what's going on. Explain to me your normal day. explained to me what's going on. And then I just started talking to her about my normal day and my routine and what I do with the kids and work and school runs. And by that time, I was crying.
Okay.
Because all I did at that time was cry. And then she said to me, how often do you cry? And I said, all the time. Wow. And then she said to me, I think you're depressed. That was the word that just did it for me.
In what way did it for you?
I actually remember standing up and I said to her, I am not depressed.
So you had a physical reaction.
It was a physical reaction of saying, do you know when you say, God forbid, I am not having that name, I'm not having that stigma. I refuse. You're not going to label me as depressed because I am not depressed. And she said to me, oh, sit down. And I sat back down again.
So she wasn't fazed, really?
She wasn't really fazed by it. And she said to me, but all the, she said to me, okay, I understand that, it could probably not be depression, it could probably not be, but I probably need to give you something just to help you sleep because I wasn't sleeping.
Right.
I was having 2-3 hours sleep and I was working full time.
Yeah.
And I had to get up and I had to go to work. And she said, if I give you something really slight just to help you sleep,
okay,
and then we can reassess it again.
Yeah.
She gave me the tablets. She said, oh, let's meet in 4 weeks. And I said, okay. And I walked out, went home, took the tablets, put them in the bin.
So were they like an antidepressant?
Yes.
Okay.
She told me that they were an antidepressant. And I said to her, no, I'm not taking. She said, no, it's a really low dose. And this is just to help you sleep. And she was trying to kind of like get me around to, but because we'd already discussed that D word.
Yeah, the D
and
word.
I didn't want to be labelled with the D word. I put the tablets in the bin.
Wow. So you just went.
And I just went on as normal.
Okay.
Really. I'm masking it.
So you went to the GP, she gave you the tablets, you didn't want to take them, and then you put the mask back on.
Yeah.
After that, what were the next steps that you took to perhaps begin to address some of the stuff that was going on for you?
I think the other bit which I did is with work as well. I had quite a close team at work, and there was an elderly lady who I used to. She was like a union rep, but she was, and she used to look at me, and we were quite close, and we used to have chats. And so at work, the more I always had the best makeup, the heels, the colourful clothes. It was that whole masking.
Okay.
But after so I looked the part, and after meetings, I would just cry. And she'd sit with me, and I'd just cry. And then I told her that I had been to the doctors, and I'd been in hospital, and I'd been to the doctors, and that the doctor and that the doctor said to me, this is what. And she looked at me and she said to me, "B, you're wounded."
Okay.
And I said to her, "But I'm not wounded." And she said to me, "You are wounded, B." And it's that acceptance of you're wounded, but how can I be wounded? Because B is strong. B is is the one that fixes it, and is the one that. And then she sat me down and she said, if you had a bandage, right? But because I was, if you had a broken knee, or if you had a broken, what would you do? Would you go to the doctors? And I said, yeah, I would. If they gave you medication for it, would you take it? And I said, I would. And she said, you're wounded inside. And sorry.
It's okay.
And I said, no, I'm not wounded inside. So it's just more, I just said, nothing the voices I could hear, but it's just more of, oh, you're crazy, you're outrageous, so it looked as if like everything I was doing was out of performance because I've got a big character, but not because I was ill. So even my crying was like a performance. I felt like people thought I was attention seeking. Right. And then I said to her, this lady was a Christian, and I remember saying to her that they're doing something in my church, and they're doing the mental health in church. So I work for a big organization.
Okay.
So the mental health thing, I did it for people.
Oh, so that was part of your job.
That's part of my job.
Okay.
Mental health awareness, and I used to do sickness absence meetings and speak to people. So I was on the other side.
Oh, I see. So you were the person usually
I
giving
was
the
person
advice.
usually giving the advice. So I've never been to a mental health day where I was coming for myself.
Right. This was a completely new concept for you.
It was a completely new concept for me. And then I had 2 friends. So I said to them, this is what we're doing. And they said, okay, fine, B, we're going to come and we're going to support you.
And can I just say, I remember that particular, our last mental health matters day, I was stood by the door welcoming people coming in when you arrived. And I remember you coming in with this group of women and assuming that you had brought your friends from work to this mental health day.
Yes. And I was looking amazing, wasn't I?
You were,
I remember.
And it was, you were looking amazing.
Colourful, yes.
You were colourful and you looked incredible. And I thought, oh, amazing, Bee's here. She's brought some of her colleagues from work. But that couldn't be further from the reality of what was actually happening.
Yeah. They were literally standing next to me, beside me, to say, this is what we're going to do because you are wounded. But I'd heard that bit about being wounded a couple of times, and I just wasn't accepting it. And I remember my life group leader at that time as well. I used to speak to her quite a lot, and she'd say to me, B, you're showing signs of, maybe you should. But it was never a word I wanted to hear because mental health associated with madness, and I was not mad.
And wounded kind of fed into that picture of madness somehow, or something being deeply wrong, or
something being deeply wrong, and something being broken.
Okay.
But when she said to me, B, you're wounded, I kind of identified with it because of the chest pains that I had been getting.
I see. Okay.
It was the physical pain, and I would, if I was walking, if I was somewhere, I'd constantly be pressing my chest in. And I couldn't sit for long, and I used to have chest pains. I used to pierce from here, going towards my back. So the reason I'd cry is because I felt the wound.
Yeah.
But because people could not see the wound, I felt that people could not believe me, and I didn't know how to explain that because that is not who B is.
No. But you knew very well that something wasn't right. And I know often with things like anxiety and depression, we will say that you get physical symptoms because you talked about your whole body being in pain and this chest pain. And often I'll say to people, that it's like a car warning light, that they're alerting you to the fact that something's wrong. And it sounds like the people at work put a word to it, this wounded.
The people at work put a word to it because I could talk to them because they were strangers.
Okay. But even that was something that in your culture you would have said that you might not have done before, but maybe they were the easiest.
I wouldn't have done it before, but the other elderly lady was a white lady.
Oh, okay. And what difference did it make that she was a white lady?
I just felt that she didn't judge me.
Okay.
And I felt that because she doesn't really know my culture or doesn't know, she just took me as B.
Okay.
And there wasn't any of that judgment, and I didn't feel as if there was any shame. I felt like there was an acceptance.
Okay.
And I could talk about it.
Okay. So it was easier to talk to her.
So it was easier. And then at home, another thing that I've noticed is because I talk a lot, I shut down.
Right.
I stopped talking.
Okay.
I stopped picking up my calls. People that would call me, I just wouldn't pick up. If you'd come and you knocked on my door and I was in the house, I wouldn't open the door.
And you're the one with the open door.
And I'm the one with the open door policy. I wouldn't open the door. I wouldn't want to be around people. I couldn't pick up my own kids. It was that bad. If the kids came and they wanted a hug from mommy couldn't give them that hug.
Okay.
Because I just wanted to be in bed. I went to work because I knew that the bills needed to be paid.
Yeah.
But straight after work, I'd go upstairs and I'd go and hide and I'd switch off my phone.
So you were completely withdrawing?
So I was completely withdrawing, but apart from me suffering the physical pain, my family was suffering the pain. My kids were suffering the pain because I couldn't give them a bath.
Okay, so
because I was tired. I was physically...
That physical stuff was completely
exhausted. And when the morning comes, I wouldn't sleep. When the morning comes, I'd have to mask it, put my makeup on.
Fix it again.
And
okay. And so this is where you were when you came along to the mental health and matters day.
Yeah.
And what happened on that day that started to make a difference, would you say?
I think when I came to it, and there was a panel. You had a panel on there, and you had an African lady who's a doctor. I think you were on it as well. Who was a female.
Yeah.
And you had there was a guy.
Yeah.
That was on it as well, and I can't remember who the other person. And for me, these were people that I looked up to, like my pillars of strength sort of thing.
Right.
And just the way you spoke and how vulnerable you were with sharing the stories, and the African doctor lady who I was quite close to, but I had never really shared my anxiety and depression with her because I felt like I couldn't and that she would judge me. She was on that panel.
Wow.
And I saw her in a different light.
Okay.
And it was more of like an eye-opener to say, oh, do you know what? She would understand me. She would. So it's being able to identify, and I could identify with your stories. And it just made me feel like it's okay not to be okay.
And I mean, I'm hearing that coming out of your mouth now.
Yeah.
What would it have been like for you back then? So this is a year ago.
Yeah.
To have been able to have said that, like coming from where you've come from, to have that realization.
It wasn't okay. The bit that I didn't mention when I said to the doctor that I didn't have the depression and I didn't want the depression is I struggled because as a strong, and I did say this to her, I am a strong Black African woman.
That was your identity.
Right, that is my identity.
Okay.
So for people that know me, they know that my culture, my family and my religion are my identity. So that is not my identity. And from a person of faith as well, right, I'm leading a life group.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
How can I even be accepting that? So that means, you know, if God is a God of hope and we're supposed to have faith and hope in God, why am I struggling?
Okay.
So my no's were my culture and my faith. And those are the things that, you know, I struggled with. And that was, so it was the shame. I felt like I wasn't the strong Black African woman I'm supposed to be and I'm raised to be. I felt I wasn't the spiritual sort of woman that knows Bible and that's speaking and that's, and I felt like I was failing and I was failing on my family.
So they were all the reference points.
Those were all the reference points
to say I'm okay. I'm a strong woman. I'm strong in my faith. I'm a strong wife. I'm a spiritual leader within my community. They were your reference points.
Those were my reference points. And how can I be perceived, or how can I? You know, it was associated with shame. It was associated with guilt. It was associated with ungratefulness. I felt as if I was quite ungrateful because if I'm coming from a third world country where people are suffering and people are hungry and there's like real life issues happening and people are happy and people are smiling and people are bouncing, what's going on? So coming for that, right, to the mental health day helped me because it helped me with my faith because I'm a woman of faith. Do you know, the whole it's okay not to be okay, that even Christians are suffering with it. And, you know, even, you know, a Black doctor is telling me, right, that it's okay to take medication.
Right. So when you heard some of these kind of strong, leaders, Christians people that you looked up to, actually saying it's okay not to be okay, and a black female doctor who and who's strong, it somehow softens something for you, and so it sounds like a bit of an acceptance almost started to happen.
Yeah, it was an acceptance, and I think for me the hardest bit of it was accepting it, because I didn't want to be accepted. I didn't want to accept it, and I didn't want to be. It was a label that I didn't want.
Okay.
And I didn't want to wear.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. And I remember on that day, it was such a safe place, and things started to break. And at the end of the day, during lunchtime, I remember saying to the doctor, I said to her, "Oh my days, I've known you for so long. I speak to you all the time. I've never seen you in that way."
Okay. In what way?
Very professional and very understanding and very caring and very, so my view of her was she was successful. She was a power lady.
Yeah.
She was also a Mrs. Suck it up and fix it.
Right.
So I would have never spoken to her about my problems in that way, because I didn't see her in that light.
And it sounds like you would have associated her with the culture that would be, come on, what have you got to be upset about?
But then that was my perception of life.
That was your perception.
And that was my perception of life, is because that was my upbringing.
Yeah.
And that is my culture.
Yeah. But it sounds like the doctor, you said she was understanding.
Yeah.
So you got something from her that you did not expect from someone of a similar cultural background to yourself, who was, you had a perception of her, but she kind of dealt you something different.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like that was just...
Something different. And with the mental health day, I just turned up.
What do you mean?
Do you know when I didn't want to come?
Right. Your friends dragged you
because
here.
I didn't know what to expect. You know when they're saying something in church and they're saying whatever, and it's something that I mentioned in work, and it was more of, B, you need this, we're going.
Yeah.
So the reason I dragged the other lady is because I was trying to get her to see my church and see how cool we are in my church.
We're so cool.
We're so cool. In our church.
Yeah.
And my other friend genuinely was just standing, standing by me or whatever, but I wanted to get somebody into my, they were standing with me.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was me that was wounded.
Right. Okay.
Okay. And I remember on that day they did there was an altar call at the end, and said, if there's anything that if anybody's suffering with anything that we've spoken about, or has got any sort of anxiety issues or any sort of symptoms, or just needs prayer, now's the best time for you to come up and we can pray with you.
Okay.
And I remember walking up, right, and going to the front, and I went to this lady. Right. And I don't want to keep saying I went to this black lady or whatever, or like it's a race thing.
Sure.
Right. But I went to another African lady. Right. And I hugged her. Right.
And what was significant about that for you? That she was a black lady and that you hugged her? I
felt that she would connect with me. I felt that she could understand. I felt that there was something, there was something there. And I just burst into tears, and I just sobbed, and I cried and I cried and I cried. And she said to me, and she started praying for me, and she started speaking in tongues, and she just started praying. And then at the end, she said, B, what we praying for? And I looked at her and I said, I don't know. And that was the honest truth. I don't know. Do you know when you can point something and you say, this is what's wrong, or this is what's whatever. I actually didn't know, and she said to me, it's okay. And then she prayed for me again.
Wow.
So that was my healing journey. That's where it started.
Okay. And I suppose, just that...
the acceptance, the coming in, that sort of thing, the just being there. So even if you didn't feel like going, I was there.
Yeah, you just kind of put yourself here.
I just put myself there. I didn't come because I wanted to get healed.
Okay, yeah.
I just turned up. And in the process of turning up, things happened and things started shifting. And so it was just the journey. And another thing as well is after that mental health day, you spoke about putting things in place and the measures that you need to do. But I went back to the doctors. I started taking my medication.
Right. And you're saying that with a smile.
I am saying it with a smile because I did go, because I'm one of the things my friends would say about me is I'm quite honest. So what you see is what you get. So the doctor asked me, have you taken your medication? I said, nope.
That honest. Yeah.
Honest. And then, she said, are you ready to take your medication? I said, I'm ready to take my medication. And then she said, well, another thing we could do for you is counselling, that you need to start. Yeah. So it's all the stuff that I've started hearing here.
So because we talked about
because you spoke about
a few of those practical things.
A few of the practical things of get help, speak to somebody, without it being the spiritual things. So I needed to deal with all aspects of it.
Okay, so the practical bits.
The practical bits of it, which I didn't want to do.
So it was like getting permission when you came to the mental health day.
Kind of like getting permission that it's okay.
It's okay. Yeah,
it's okay. It's not just because you're on medication doesn't mean you're barking mad. Yeah. Just because you're on medication, it doesn't mean you're unstable. Just because you're on medication doesn't mean you're not going to get that promotion.
Wow.
Because if you're trying to be a high flyer and smash the glass ceiling, they ask you, how do you work under pressure?
Yeah. Yeah. And the two just didn't equate for you before.
And the two didn't equate for me. So, and I put the practical things, and then I was seeing someone every week. Okay. That was through work. But, I said in the beginning, the things that defined me are my culture and my religion and I felt that there was things that were also empty. Because the things that they were talking about in mindfulness and so I started doing my own mindfulness, started listening to messages. I was listening. I was so hungry to get well. Yes, I was listening to every single.
You were hungry to get well.
I was hungry to get well, and because I had now accepted that there was something wrong with me.
Okay, and it wasn't that you weren't good enough, that you weren't strong enough.
It was just I needed to deal with stuff. There was so much noise going around. So I came off social media. I was off social media for a year.
That's a serious thing. Okay, a year? Did you say?
A whole year.
Wow.
And I used to call myself a monitoring spirit. Like in the middle of the night when you're awake. Yeah. Because I couldn't sleep. Oh, okay. I'd be on social media from like 2:00 in the morning till 5:00 in the morning. I need to get up at 6.
Okay, so it was a way of just coping with not sleeping.
Just a way of not coping without sleeping, and not a way with. So
you went off social media.
Came off social media. Everybody's life looked happy on social media and stuff.
So
comparison. I came off social media, and I started listening to different messages and different sermons. And I used to listen to T.D. Jackson because I loved him. I thought, nice strong black man. Yeah. It's brilliant. I used to listen to all different messages, and then one day I also listened to Pastor Sophia's messages on "Goo is good."
Oh, that was that message about the caterpillar being in the cocoon, and it was all dark in there. How did you relate to that then?
And the funny thing is that message, when she preached it in 2016, I was in that message. I was in that sermon.
Okay, so you heard it in 2016.
Yes, I've heard it. I've heard it before. But this time round, it was so different because I could identify with her. I connected with her. So even the fact that I'd been listening to so many messages, that was the message for me. That was, oh, my days be, you are in goo.
Oh, and what did that goo look like to you? I mean, how did you recognise that you'd been in the goo?
I was a mess.
Okay.
I had hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
Do you know when I said I would close myself in the room. I couldn't carry the kids. I didn't know who I was. I didn't want the children. I didn't want my marriage. I didn't want my job. It's this whole identity of who am I? I didn't know who I was. And you know when I said I came here and I was crying and they asked me, what's wrong?
What's wrong?
And I actually didn't know.
Okay.
So that's the bit where...
And when you heard the message about the goo, the caterpillar in the cocoon, was that when you kind of realised, okay, that's what's been happening?
That's what's been happening. But I had come, so I said I'd come from the mental health days, more of what the practical things that you had been doing.
Okay.
So I had come to the mental health day.
Yes.
I'd been listening to messages, trying to get myself better, listening to different types of messages, and then I stumbled in this message, and because Pastor Sophia obviously is a senior pastor, she's a woman, she's married, she has children, she's a leader. I could identify with her.
Okay, so
there was that connection.
Yes.
It wasn't a connection of culture. It wasn't a connection of who I am. It was just a connection of what she's been through as a woman, as a mom, as a wife, and as a leader, because I was struggling with. How am I leading?
Yes.
When I'm this? How can I be a good mom when I'm this? So when she preached that message, it was more of, oh my days, this is where I am and what do I need to do? And what I took from that message is I needed to empty out because God is doing something.
Wow. So you became aware God
I
is doing
became aware
something.
that I need to empty out because I need to empty out everything and be still.
Wow.
So that's the bit when I said I came off social media. I came off and I was just literally still to hear God's word, to hear what he's saying to me, to hear who he's saying I am, that I'm accepted, I'm loved, and that I'm good enough, and that I'm chosen.
That's incredible.
It's that, but you ask yourself, why me? Why do people come to me? Why do people want to knock on my door? Why do people, because I felt life was unfair because no one was coming to me. I felt like I'd been neglected and I wasn't being listened to. But it's that bit of God says, I've chosen you.
Wow.
Right. Why am I leading a life group? It's you that I've chosen and he's known. So from that message, it was so powerful to be able to identify with someone who, we look up to, who's our spiritual mother. You might call her my spiritual mother. And being able to share that and being in a place where we were so vulnerable and thinking, this is where I am.
And it was okay for
a
strong woman, female leader to say, actually, it's all right to go through those vulnerable times. It's all right to go through
the vulnerable times. And then at that time, I reflected it on, who does God say I am? Right, not who does my culture say I am. Okay. So when people say to me, I don't know what people see in colour, we're all the same, it annoys me. Because I think we're not the same.
Yeah.
Right, we're not. We've got different hair.
Yeah.
I'm kinky and, you straighten yours. Yeah. I buy extensions. Yeah. So stop saying we're the same.
Yeah.
But when I look back into, the way I think and my thought processes and my whatever is based on my culture, my upbringing, and this is something that was formed before I came here. So although I've been here for 20 years, I've still got a history of how I think. But with that message, it was, it basically told me that I need to empty out. It's not about what my culture says about me. It's not about what my friends think about me. It's not what my husband or what my children think about me. It's about who God... It's not even about who I think what the Bible says about me.
Okay.
Because that could have still been twisted. And wrong.
Yeah.
So I needed to be like a baby again and totally empty out and just say, God, fill me up again.
Wow.
And I attended... I got up to every altar call.
So you just went forward at every opportunity?
I just went forward for every opportunity. I would just turn up and I would just cry. But the bit I didn't say is I used to struggle to come to church as well. So I would, before I came to the mental health day, I would leave early before you do the altar call bit so people don't say hello.
Oh.
So people think I was friendly or whatever, but I avoided people deliberately. Right. And I'd sit in the car.
Okay.
And quickly want to leave.
Yeah. In case they saw what was here, in case they saw that I was sad, in case they saw that I was crying. So there was a lot of things that were not of who people thought I was that was happening to me. Yeah. But anyway, through that journey of going through the processes and I've started on that journey of healing. That is just an incredible story. And where would you say you are now? Like this, we're now looking at a year ago since we had our last Mental Health Matters Day. Where are you at now, would you say? Are you like sorted? Is it everything like fine or?
I'm in a good place.
Okay.
And what I mean by I'm in a good place is I can identify what I can identify triggers.
Yeah.
There's certain measures that I need to put in place. So I'm not like 100% super duper.
Yeah.
You know, I do say I am healed because when I look from where I was.
Sure. You can see where
I can talk about it.
And that's huge.
Yes.
You can talk about
I can talk about it because
we're having this conversation is a miracle in itself, really.
I couldn't talk about it, but I've got a process where, like in the morning and stuff, I talk about that whole well-being. When I wake up in the morning, I wake up at 5 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
That's an early start. To get ready for work.
Yeah.
To get ready. But I've had to wake up a bit earlier. Right. So I can be able to do some practical things in place for me to face the day.
Right.
So when I get into work, everyone goes, "Oh my days, why are you so cheerful? And why are you so bouncy?" They don't know what I've had to do.
Yeah.
Right. I've had to fill myself
kind of
up.
disciplines
it's
that
the
you
disciplines
follow.
that I do. I listen to motivational speaking.
Okay.
I listen to sermons. I worship.
Wow.
So even when I wake up in the morning and I don't feel like praying,
okay,
I'll praise my way into work.
Yeah.
And by the time I start my day, I can be able to face things in the way I would have reacted before. I react differently. So it's a journey, but I try and put, so there's I was thinking about the other day, there's a difference with having a bad day and you're feeling a bit sad on one day, and there's a difference with being constantly crying. So I do have bad days, but I can identify things and find ways.
Normal, wouldn't it?
Yes, and I'm off medication.
Oh, that's just incredible. What an incredible story. And just, I suppose, one last thing I'm just wondering, I've said we're just about to have our second Mental Health Matters Day. So a whole year's gone by and you've been on this amazing journey. And it could be that other women or men from perhaps different cultures to my culture or different cultures to your culture might hear this conversation. What might you say to them to encourage them to perhaps come along to Mental Health Matters, or even wider than that, to start to address their own challenges? What might you say to them?
What I would say is mental health is real.
Okay.
It's not something that happens to them. It can happen to any one of us. It's happened to me.
And it's happened to me.
Yeah. So it's something that is something that is real. And stepping out and seeking help and being able to talk about it. So it's more of identifying it and accepting it and finding a safe space to talk about it. Sometimes if you don't feel like you want, just turn up.
Just keep on turning up.
Just keep on turning up.
Yeah.
But I think it's good to talk, because the enemy tries to shut you down. But once you start talking, that's where the healing starts. That's where you start getting the breakthrough. So it's important to find somebody. If you feel you can't talk to certain people, identify one person.
Yeah.
Or just turn up. You might think, oh, this could not be me. But I'm going to turn up anyway. Just turn up.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And I think it's just been amazing to chat with you.
Yeah.
And thank you for your honesty and your vulnerability. I feel like I've got to know you better. And I'm looking forward to the next time we're on a dance floor and we can party again.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And you can take your shoes off.
Oh, maybe that's what I need to do.
Yeah, no heels. Kick your shoes off and just dance.
Kick your shoes off.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you, Bea. It's been amazing.
And thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure.
I feel honoured. Thank you.